Now, as well as having the sample rate, which is the number of points on the line that are actually plotted, so basically, if we think of sample rate as going along this way, where every sample that we have is a plot on the line, we also have the sample size. Now, basically, this is the number of bits per sample. And what that means is that along, say, this line here, we can have a point here, or 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 a point here, okay? And basically, like I said before, computers can't think of infinites. So what we want to do is limit the amount of points that they can actually have here. And that limits, obviously, the file size as well. So we can have 8 bits where they can be picked from, or 16 bits. And obviously, if you have double the amount of bits per sample, then you have double the amount of points that you can choose from. So the difference between this point here and this point here is much closer. So you can have, for the number of bits per sample, or the sample size, you can have 8 bits or 16 bits per sample. Obviously, the more bits there are, then again, the higher quality the sound, but the bigger the file size. So far on our sound wave, we've looked at the sample rate, which is the number of segments that you take this way, and the sample size, which is the number of bits that you can possibly take that way. So if we imagine that like a net, that helps a lot. There's also in audio something called channels. So the number of channels you have obviously will also increase the file size. So if you think with a normal set of headphones, that's 2 channels. And basically the way that we can tell this is if you can hear all of the sound coming out of one, then that's a mono channel. And a lot of the old AM radio stations are like this. So you have, if you can take out one headphone and share one with your mate and still hear all the sound that comes out, then it's a mono. If the sound comes out differently out of the 2 different headphones, so for example, you might hear the guitars coming out of this one and the drums coming out of this one, then that means that there's 2 channels. So sometimes if you take a headphone out, you can't hear in the same quality, or some of the instruments or some of the heavier beats have been taken out. So that means that it's a stereo channel. So stereo basically meaning 2. Now sometimes, if you think of your home theatre systems, you might have 5 or 6 channels. But for the purposes of the syllabus, we're just looking at mono or stereo. So far you have, as the factors affecting the file size of audio, the sample rate, the sample size, the number of channels, okay, and that's 1 or 2, okay, and then obviously also the size of the file, sorry, the sound, so size of the file in seconds. So say this might be, let's say, 2 minutes, 60 seconds. So what we have here, the sample rate would be either those horribly long numbers of 44100 or 22050. The sample size is either 8 or 16 bit. So I'm going to say 8 here. And the number of channels is either 1 or 2. So I'm going to say 2. Now basically all you need to do in order to get the file size is multiply all those numbers together. So as long as you can remember the factors that affect, so there's 4 factors that affect the file size, and all you have to remember is the fact that you have to then calculate all those by multiplying them all out. So I'm going to use my calculator again, 4400 times 8 times 2 times 60. And the answer to that is 42336,000. Now, if you're anything like me and can't even add up, then you'll find that really difficult if you do, say, IPT and you can't bring a calculator into the course. Now, in multimedia, you should absolutely be bringing your calculator into the exam because the likelihood is you will need it. If you can't get all the calculations out, try and just remember the formulas, and again, use your working out so that you can actually prove to the marker that you know what you're doing. So this is in bits. Again, in order to get it to kilobits, we divide it by 8 and divide it by 1024 in order to get it to kilobytes, sorry. Okay, and the answer to that is divided by that strange big number that we had before, 8192, because 8192 is 8 times 1024, and equals, so this file size is 5167.96 and some small change left over.